Mercedes is pretty much top dog when it comes to tech and sophistication in its respective market segments, but where does it sit in the whole hybrid electric arena? Well, today we've got our hands on the diesel plug-in hybrid variant of the beloved E-Class estate, or the E300DE to be exact. So we're talking 30 miles of electric range. But before we get into all the tech specs, can we just appreciate how much better the new styling changes make it look? Mercedes is basically taking the more, should we say, interesting design elements of the likes of the A-Class and the CLA and made it work on a much bigger, chunkier scale, and I reckon it looks spot on, as does the new Mojave Silver paint job, which when paired with the Night Edition package we've got and its black gloss highlights and tinted windows, places it somewhere between Gordon Gekko and Bruce Wayne. I mean, there's silver and there's silver. I think it looks ace. Anyway, it's a luxury estate with plug-in hybrid tech. So the question is it still a Mercedes at heart, and does it actually work as an in and out of the city hybrid? Let's take a look. Right, so today we've got the flagship model in the range, which is the AMG line Premium Plus. So in theory, it should feel like a balls out pretentious Mercedes in here. And it does, in a very nice way, of course. Honestly, Mercedes just gets it when it comes to interiors. There's just the right amount of buttons, including aircon buttons here, thank God, and just the right amount of flair as well, just so it feels practical and yet showy at the same time. I like this grey ashwood trim that envelops the whole dash as well. It really helps add a bit of colour and a bit of intrigue. Then there's the fragrance coming out the vents, slick LED lighting that looks particularly cool at night, leather and soft touch pretty much everything, including down here on the center console, which is a nice touch, and yeah, it really is the business in here. Now, infotainment wise, everything is centered around this MBUX infotainment system, which features two 12.3-inch screens as standard, and these stretch from the dashboard to behind the steering wheel. Now, I know it's a cliche, but honestly, there is so much to go through and so much included in this infotainment system, there's literally too much to list. But I will do my best to list some of the best features. Now, bearing in mind this is a luxury German car, so a lot of the things mentioned might be optional. It depends what model you go for, just bear that in mind before you approach the minefield of tick boxes on the online configurator. First off, there's a sharp touchscreen with easy to read large menu graphics. There's augmented sat-nav directions that feature floating arrows and road names, an EQ menu that can help you better understand your fuel economy and help you cap charging power when plugging in from a 3-pin socket. There's an energizing comfort section that has relaxation walkthroughs. There's different themes you can set for different types of journeys, allowing you to prioritize certain displays like sat-nav or audio. There's tons of cameras to toggle through, easy to adjust driver assist features, easy to navigate radio stations, highly customizable behind the wheel displays. You can adjust features like climate control remotely via the Mercedes Me app, and in true Knight Rider fashion, you can ask the car to help you with certain things. Hi Mercedes.
How can I help?
What's the weather like where I am?
Currently it is cloudy in Warrington with a temperature of 15 degrees. In the afternoon it will be cloudy with temperatures around 18 degrees.
It's not quite kit, but that's handy, isn't it? Sorry if that sounded like a sales pitch, but honestly this system really is worth shouting about. It's proper slashing edge. But it's not perfect. No system is. I mean, this obviously comes down to personal preference, but I'm talking about the new steering wheel setup and how you use it to control these screens. So the new steering wheel has lots of capacitive touch sensitive buttons. It's a bit overwhelming at first, but you do get used to the layout. And these can be used to toggle the screen behind the steering wheel and the main screen in the center of the dashboard. And it's the latter I've been using more than anything. And generally these touch sensitive controls are really good. They're easy to use, but they're also easy to overdo a swipe left or right and get frustrated because you can't land on the right icon on the menu. And also when you're doing maneuvers and 3-point turns and things like that, it's very easy to accidentally swipe and touch a button like that and think, oh god, how do I get that menu back? Now the other ways to navigate the screen are via the screen itself, because it's touchscreen, which is a nice option, or via this touch sensitive pad down here. Now personally I'm not a big fan of this. I just don't see the point in taking my hands off the wheel if I don't have to. Plus this can be pretty tough to control even when stationary, let alone when out on the road. I'm not a massive fan of this, but hey, that's just me. Other people might be, like Lexus fans. Now, aside from all the tech I've just mentioned, it is very easy to get comfy in here. There's tons of adjustment in the seats. There's a nicely placed armrest here, and storage is pretty good all around as well. The door bins are decent. You've got nice cup holders here and some storage for your phone, keys and sunglasses. Good storage under the arm here. The only slightly disappointing thing is the glove box, because a lot of the space in there is taken up by the aforementioned air freshener. So these rear doors open nice and wide, which is handy when loading child seats, although when fully open they do spring back a little bit, which is a bit annoying, but anyway. And once you climb in here and close the door, you've got a rather satisfying vacuum-like thud, which I like. And sitting back here is just as serene as you'd expect. There's loads of leg room, there's loads of headroom, even with this panoramic sunroof. And getting comfortable is very easy. You've got the strategically placed armrest on the door, and although these seats don't slide back and forth or recline, they don't really feel like they need to. I like the fact that you've got this air vent on the B-pillar as well. Makes getting some fresh air into your face very easy. And it does feel quite limo-esque back here, especially when you look ahead to the vast cabin. You've got that grey detailing coming through to the back as well, which helps break up some of the monotony of the black leather. Now, you do have a pretty chunky transmission tunnel here in the middle, which does limit legroom for a middle passenger, but let's be honest, kids aren't going to complain when sat in the middle, and you're not really going to have 3 adults sat back here. Now, there are 2 other tiny little things that I want to mention. So there's an armrest, which is good, a little bit of storage in there as well, but the cup holders require 2 hands to use. You can't just throw a cup in straight away, you've got to sort of do that, which is a bit of a pain. Also, this charging solution tray here, which has got some USB ports in, it just feels really flimsy, like it could just snap off. Anyway, now you will no doubt notice when you open the boot that that parcel shelf nicely slides out the way, which is a nice touch. You'll also notice just how low the load lip is. I mean, you can walk in if you wanted to. Now, while loading things in is very easy to do, storage, on the other hand, is a very different story, because you've got the batteries of the hybrid system right there in the middle of the boot, which takes up about 200 litres of space, leaving you with around 500 litres. But that space is compromised. I mean, you do really have to kind of work around it. And there's even a little space behind that hump as well. So yeah, if you lose a brolly, you know where to find it. You do get a bit of underfloor storage here, but that's nothing to shout about. You can fold the seats down via these buttons back here. It's actually the only way to fold these seats down, and they do work pretty rapidly, which is always good. Now, it's not a flat loading bed because of that hump, so you are going to be compromised when loading longer objects. Now, before we set off on the road, let's just talk about charging times. I love the sound of that. It sounds like RoboCop getting up from a low chair. Anyway, charging time. So to charge the E-Class, as it is a plug-in hybrid with a 13.5 kilowatt per hour battery, you can plug it in to a standard 3-pin wall socket. Do not use an extension lead. Now, plug it into a standard socket, this will take around 5 hours. In fact, I charged it last night and it took exactly 5 hours, so that is a very accurate time. You can reduce that time to 2 hours if you use a wall box charger though. And on a full charge, Mercedes says you should be able to get around 30 miles of electric range, or 33 miles in fact. So, is that accurate? I mean, best case scenario, let's say you're driving very sensibly and being very sensible with the accelerator through the city, you're probably looking at between 25 to 30 miles. Of course, more realistically, with a few quick lane changes and a few blips on the accelerator to get through junctions, you're probably looking at between 20 to 25 miles. Not terrible, but not great either. Of course, that depends on how long your commute is and whether there's a charger readily available at your place of work. But this car isn't just about pure electric driving. It's the hybrid mode that's likely to give you the more sustainable figures. Now, all in, you're looking at a total power output of around 300 horsepower. That's when combining the electric motor and the 2-litre diesel engine, which, by the way, is mated to a 9-speed automatic gearbox. Now, overall, when utilising hybrid mode, you're probably going to get about 50 to 55 miles per gallon on average pretty easily, I'd say, which is, I mean, really good for a you know, a car this size. If you're a bit lazy and you don't charge it as regularly as you should, and you're just using diesel power, then expect around mid-40s, which is pretty good anyway. And for those company car drivers concerned with BIK tax, you're looking at a very low 11% BIK tax rate for 2021 and 2022. Of course, what fuel economy you get is going to be determined by how you juggle that electric power, and the driving modes available in the E-Class make that pretty easy, to be honest. So there is battery mode, and that allows you to hold on to all of your electric power to use it at a more appropriate time, let's say in the city or in an urban area. The opposite of that is electric mode, which only uses electric power. Then on the flip side of that, you've got comfort and eco mode. Now these allow the car to kind of decide which form of power, whether electric or diesel power, is better for you. Eco being the more intense of the two and limiting the likes of throttle input and quickening the gear changes to make things super frugal. Honestly, all things considered, I think comfort mode is probably the sweet spot. And speaking of gear changes and switching between diesel and electric power, you can just about hear it, but you can't really feel it. I mean, it is incredibly smooth and refined, and the 9-speed auto does a great job as well. Although there is a bit of lag when you put your foot down, as in any auto, it does rifle through the gears brilliantly and quite relentlessly, actually. I mean, if you're in the outside lane of the motorway, you better keep a keen eye on your speed. In terms of general drivability, it's very much a Mercedes. It's refined overall, it absorbs the vast majority of bumps, no problem at all. And while there is a bit of engine noise and the harsh acceleration, it's not a problem. In fact, rear visibility, even given its size, is pretty good thanks to that little piece of glass in the C-pillar. I like the fact that the steering noticeably sharpens up just off centre as well, so you feel in control on winding country roads and the size of the car just pretty much melts around you. And the vast amounts of driver assistance features, again, make it really easy to drive. You've got blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, and I like the fact that the autonomous lane keep assist feature, which basically drives the car and keeps it in lane on the motorway, merely requires you to touch the steering wheel to tell the car that you're still there, as opposed to in other cars where you've got to grab it and wiggle it. So the E-Class pulls off the eco thing really well, but arguably more importantly, it maintains its Mercedes DNA. It feels like a car that's tailored around the driver and their needs, which is exactly what an executive car should feel like. Don't get me wrong, it's not completely perfect, lackluster boots, pricey options, but I'd argue it's pretty perfect where it counts.